Thomas Hardy was a novelist and poet of the second half of the 19th and the early part of the 20th century. He initially made his name as a realist novelist and short story writer, and his most famous novels include Far from the Madding Crowd, published in 1874, The Mayor of Casterbridge in 1886, Tess of the D'Urbervilles in 1891, and Jude the Obscure in 1895. But his fiction became increasingly controversial. In Tess of the D'Urbervilles, he wrote about a fallen woman, in fact, actually a rape survivor, but insisted on subtitling the novel, A Pure Woman Faithfully Presented. Jude the Obscure caused even more uproar because of its treatment of sex, marriage, and religion. And at that point, Hardy abandoned his career in fiction and turned exclusively to the writing of poetry. You are reading one of Hardy's short stories, The Sun's Veto, and 3 of his poems. Alyssa Mann explicates his poem, The Convergence of the Twain, in her poetry presentation, and I want to say a few words about the other 2 poems. There's some biographical information that can help with the interpretation of his poem, The Voice. Hardy married for love a woman called Emma, but the marriage was difficult, and the couple eventually became estranged. When Emma died in 1912, however, Hardy was consumed by grief and guilt and a sense of lost possibilities. In The Voice, his dead wife's voice seems to haunt him. Woman much missed how you called to me, saying that now you are not as you were when you had changed from the one who was all to me, but as at first, when our day was fair. Can it be you that I hear? Let me view you then, standing as when I drew near to the town where you would wait for me. Yes, as I knew you then, even to the original air-blue gown. Or is it only the breeze in its listlessness travelling across the wet mead to me here, you being ever dissolved to wan wistlessness, heard no more again far or near? So in stanza 1, note the biographical reference. The voice says that she's not the estranged wife who had died, but the girl he fell in love with and married. In stanza 2, he can only hear her and not see her, but he longs to see her looking as she did when they were first in love. In stanza 3, he's not sure, though, whether he really hears her or not, or whether it's just the wind, and he's imagining her voice. Now, these 3 stanzas are remarkable for many reasons, but especially for their meter. This poem is in dactylic tetrameter. Often dactylic meter gives a sense of galloping or speed, but here Hardy manages to use it for much gentler effects. 3-syllable rhymes, call to me, all to me, view you then, knew you then, sometimes sound comic, but Hardy again deploys them beautifully, bravely rhyming listlessness with wistlessness. After setting up our expectations with these 3 stanzas and their waltz-like meter, Hardy shocks us by shifting in the final stanza to an entirely different meter. Thus I, faltering forward, leaves around me falling, wind oozing thin through the thorn from Norward, and the woman calling. He's no longer talking to the woman as he does in the first 3 stanzas. It's as if he sort of pulls the camera back and sees himself in this bleak landscape, haunted by a voice that may or may not be real. As The Sun's Veto suggests, Hardy's literary vision is fundamentally tragic and pessimistic. The poem that he wrote at the very end of the 19th century, The Darkling thrush, perfectly embodies this vision. While it's influenced by Romanticism, it also offers a much more pessimistic view of nature and of human potential than the Romantic poets gave us. I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre grey, and winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. The tangled vine stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. Hardy opens with a bleak landscape. It's winter, it's twilight, it's deserted, except for him. And notice the amazing image of the stems of the vines against the winter sky, like strings of broken lyres. There's no music here. The lyre, which is an image the Romantics loved for romantic poetry, the lyre is broken. The diction and the sound effects in this stanza also help create that sense of dull sadness. The land's sharp features seem to be the century's corpse outlent. His crypt the cloudy canopy, the wind his death lament. The ancient pulse of germ and birth was shrunken hard and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed fervorless as I. Hardy's writing at the very end of the 19th century, and he sees this landscape as representing this death. The land around is the corpse itself. The cloudy sky is the crypt. The sound of the wind is the morning song. But everything seems dead. Even the seeds, which are supposed to be about new life coming in the spring, they're shrunken hard and dry. But then he hears the bird. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead, in a full-hearted evensong of joy illimited. An aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small, in blast-beruffled plume, had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom. The bird begins to sing, and it seems to be full of joy. But he's not a perfect, beautiful songbird. He's this ordinary garden bird, and he's in bad shape, aged, frail, gaunt, small, and with blast-beruffled plume. The Romantics often use the bird as a symbol for the poet. If that's what we have here, it is a bedraggled poet, not an ideal singer. I also like the final words of the stanza, growing gloom. That's the twilight in the landscape, yes, but also the society itself as the century comes to an end. Now I want to show you a video of an English thrush. Let's see. There it is. The man who made the video is much more interested in his camera than in the thrush, but I think it's worth having an idea of the thrush and its song for full understanding of the poem. Okay, there's our thrush. In the spring, in a tree. And our final stanza. So little cause for carolings of such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things afar or nigh around, that I could think there trembled through his happy good-night air some blessed hope of whereof he knew, and I was unaware. The poem ends with the suggestion that there may be hope, but it's a very tentative suggestion. The speaker is still unaware of any reason to hope for the future. And that's Hardy's essentially tragic vision.